Welcome back to Daytime, everyone. For our kids, back to school means new routines and new situations. For parents, though, it's the same challenge as always: how to keep the lines of communication open with our children.
Sacred parenting author Rabbi Elaine Rose Glickman will share some tips about how to communicate with your kids during this time of year and how you can get them on a track for a successful year academically and socially. Good to have you here, Rabbi.
Well, thank you. Good to be here.
So let's talk about this. It often comes up. Your kids will come home from school and you'll say, "How was your day?" And they'll say, "Fine." And then you'll say, "What'd you do?" And they'll say, "Nothing." So, okay, how do you expand on that with your children?
That is a good question. When our kids get home from a day at school, they are exhausted. And it's often the case that after a child's been at school all day, it's not the first thing on their minds to tell their parents every detail about the day. But that doesn't mean we don't want to hear it. And it doesn't mean it's not important for them to share with us. What I find is helpful is to ask open-ended questions, questions that require a longer response than one word, and questions that they'll really want to answer. You can try asking, what was most surprising about school today? What was interesting about school today? Did anyone do anything funny at school today? A great one to ask is, did anyone get into trouble today? Assuming your kid isn't the one who got in trouble, they are very eager to spill on all the details of the kids who did. They open up beyond that, and also you find out a lot about what their classmates are like, how the teacher handles a misbehaving child. You can get a lot of clues from these questions.
I like that question.
Yeah, you know, a lot of parents hate to hear their child coming home and saying, somebody was mean to me or somebody hurt me. How do you respond to this? What's the best way to respond?
It's such an awful thing to hear, and the best thing you can do for a child is to take yourself out of the equation. You want to jump in and say, that kid sounds like a jerk, or I'll go to the teacher and I'll get everything fixed. But the best thing we can do is actually to back off, to ask questions, and to give our child space to tell us what happened and to process what happened. We want to assure our child that we're there for them if they need us, but we also want to help them through the situation. Ask questions, how do you think you could handle this? How do you think we can work this out? And make sure that your child always knows that you believe in them and in their ability to stand up for themselves.
Smart.
Here are some words that every parent dreads hearing. My teacher doesn't like me. Well, how do you respond to that?
I know. We'll all hear that once or twice in our lives, and that's another tough question. There's such a fine line between supporting our child and being a helicopter parent, and it's probably hardest to navigate when we hear that there's an adult, especially a teacher, who is being unfair to our child. Again, the most important thing is to ask questions and to let your child process for himself or for herself. If you say, that teacher sounds terrible, I'm going to go to the principal and get you switched, or if you say, well, you must have done something bad and you better shape up because in my day we respected our teachers, both of those things are going to be dead-end conversations. But if you say, please tell me about what happened, do you really feel like you put forth your best effort in that situation? Is a teacher that strict with other kids? Do you think it might be easier for you to behave better if you and Tabitha didn't sit next to each other? By asking these questions, we help our kids work out for themselves what's going on. And by asking questions, rather than lecturing at our children, we become a team. We tell our children, we're here for you, we'll work this out together.
And that's key, asking them questions, but actually listening to them and letting them know that you're listening to them.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things that we can do is to act almost like a mirror. Just as a mirror doesn't always, just a mirror always reflects, but always doesn't react. Sometimes that's what we want to do. We want to make sure our children know that we hear what they're saying, we understand what they're saying. We don't always have to react. We just need to let our children know that we hear them and that we care about what they have to say.
And finally, you say, make time for your child.
Absolutely. We can say all the right things, but if we're saying it while we're texting with a friend, or if our child has just begun to open up and we jump up to answer the telephone, our kids get a very strong message that it's not really so important to us what they have to say. Rather, we need to set aside time when we can really focus on our children, whether it's in the car, whether it's at home, whether it's at the ice cream shop or getting something to eat after school. When we really take time to sit with our kids, to look them in the eye, and to make sure that they understand how important they are to us. That's the best way to have these conversations, and that's the best way to keep the lines of communication open with our child always.
And they learn so much from us. I mean, if you ask a question and then you don't respect them enough to stick around to answer, they'll turn out just like that. They'll learn from that behavior. So give them the respect and they'll give it back.
Absolutely.
Do it now. It's the beginning of the school year.
Exactly.
It's a good time to start.
Rabbi Elaine Glickman, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me.
All right, after the break, delicious deals in the country's theme park capital.
Yep, we're headed to Orlando. Coming up next. Don't go away.